41 light-years from Earth. On the volcanic world of 55 Cancri E, the air itself can kill you. Ash, charged with rare minerals, powers the most valuable energy cells in human history. But it can also corrode steel, short out machines, and choke an entire city dome in minutes. After years of brutal conflict, the Terran Resource Compact and the Serathi Concord have agreed to share these resources under a fragile treaty. For the first time, humans and Serathi will mine side by side. Trade will flow, war will end, or so they hope. On the eve of the treaty's final signing, a violent sabotage rocks the heart of Ashridge Hub, the joint mining and diplomatic center. The evidence? A shadow in a black enviro suit, matching Serathi design. Now Iris Calder, a human security investigator, and Commander Talon Varys, a Serathi officer, have less than 24 hours to uncover the truth. If they fail, the treaty will collapse, and the ash storms of 55 Cancri E will once again be lit by the fires of war. This is Ashfall Accord, a story of trust on the edge of extinction, and the fight to keep a fragile peace from turning to dust. 47. Ashridge Hub, 55. Cancri E, 41 light-years from Earth. The night side of 55 Cancri never truly slept. It just shifted colors. Tonight, the basalt plains beyond Ashridge Hub glowed in a deep ember haze, lit by rivers of molten rock 100 kilometers away. Inside the dome, the air shivered, a faint tremor. Then another, sharper, running through the alloy bones of the structure. Iris Calder froze mid-step on the mezzanine above the eastern filtration bays. Her headset flickered with a pulsing amber warning. Tro particulate alert. V-stack network. Amber. Not red, but still. Enough to tighten her throat. Below her, the lattice towers of the Tro quantum filtration array stretched like silver organ. Pipes toward the dome ceiling. Holographic readouts danced with static. Ari, talk to me. The AI's voice emerged low, crisp. Vibration irregularities in filtration cluster V10 through V12. Current variance, 0.96%, above threshold. Correlated anomalies in quantum core phase alignment. Not something you wanted 3 hours before two governments signed away rights to half the planet's mineral wealth. Across the mezzanine, Commander Talon Varys strode in, his elongated Serathi frame moving like a shadow against the glass wall. His breathing mask shimmered faintly under the work lights. "That's not seismic," he said without preamble. "No, it's internal," Iris replied. They stood side by side, looking down into the humming depths of Ashridge Hub. Outside the dome, storms of micro-ash raced along the terminus scar. Inside, the world smelled faintly of ozone and heated ceramic. Far below, maintenance crews in gray TRC exosuits moved like ants around the base of V12 stack. Each suit's shoulder light cut brief white cones through the rising mist of suspended ash. Talon's eyes narrowed. These readings, they're consistent. With phase jamming. Someone's playing with the quantum filters. Iris adjusted her wrist display. Or testing them, without clearance. In the middle of Treaty Week? Not likely. A deeper tremor rolled underfoot. This one was long enough for both of them to grip the railing. From somewhere far below came a hollow metallic groan, the sound of tension building in alloy joints not designed to flex. Ari, seal V10 through V12 to level 3 access only, Iris ordered. Done, the AI replied. Notifying both. Delegation security protocols. Talon tilted his head toward the central concourse. Beyond the glass, the upper levels of Ashridge Hub were alive with movement. TRC envoys in cobalt jackets, Serathi delegates with their translucent skin catching the dome lights, interpreters walking between them in hushed urgency. They're about to bring the media down here, Talon said quietly. Then we fix this before a camera crew starts speculating. They moved together down the spiral service stair, their boots ringing against the alloy mesh. The air grew hotter as they descended, heat from the processing core radiating up the tower shafts. At the base, a TRC foreman waved them over. His visor reflected the tower's flickering status lights. We had a phase spike, but no source logged. Filters are compensating, but if they slip more than 2%, you get unbound particulate flooding the intakes, Iris finished. The man nodded grimly. Talon scanned the tower's surface with a portable spectrometer. The readout shimmered in his hand. Phase alignment. Irregularities forming a faint, uneven band 3 meters above the deck. This isn't random, he said. It's directional, like someone pulsed the filter from inside the maintenance conduit. Iris's gaze tracked the conduit line up into the shadows of the tower's midsection. No movement, just the slow drift of micro-ash in the lamplight. Someone's testing the dome's lungs, she murmured, and lungs fail quietly until they don't. Ari's voice cut in. Be advised, media delegates entering Sector 6 in 2 minutes. Both delegations request environmental stability reports before proceeding to signing chamber. Iris met Talon's gaze. We've got 2 minutes to make this look like nothing. Or we've got 2 minutes before someone else decides the treaty isn't worth the paper. The tremor came again. Lighter this time, almost like a warning. Knock through the metal. Both of them turned toward V12 stack. High above, one of the amber indicator lights blinked twice and went dark. The amber light above V12 stack stayed dead. That was never a good sign. Iris tapped her comm. Ari, isolate the airflow from V12 and push a particle scan through the upper conduit. Airflow isolated. Warning, quantum filter integrity at 91%. Talon moved to the access hatch, his long Serathi fingers flicking over the manual release. The hatch sighed open, releasing a dry hiss of air laced with something sharp. Not heat, not ozone. Ash. He leaned closer. This is micro-ash, submicron. It's breached past primary filtration. That's not supposed to happen, Iris said. They both knew the danger. Micro-ash on 55 Cancri E wasn't just dust. It was electrically active, laden with trace minerals that could short microcircuits, corrode alloys, and in high enough concentration, suffocate. A pair of TRC maintenance techs arrived, suits still half-sealed. One passed Iris a handheld scope. She crouched, scanning the hatch's interior rim. The readout bloomed with data, spikes in particle density and, stranger still, a subtle pattern of distribution along the breach. This isn't random settling, she murmured. Talon's voice was tight. Deliberate injection, they used the conduit like a delivery pipe. One of the techs shifted uncomfortably. Could be stress fatigue in the sealant. No, Iris said, shaking her head. Fatigue leaves fractures. This is clean entry. Ari's voice cut in again. Correlating breach signature with existing ash print database. Preliminary match. Serathi filtration tools, model SD4. Talon looked at her sharply. SD4's been obsolete for 10 years, and you can get knockoffs on any cargo run between here and Vega Station. Iris kept her eyes on the scope. The match didn't mean guilt, just a trail. A trail someone wanted them to follow. Above them, the faint hum of the filtration towers deepened, compensating for the loss. It was buying them time, but not much. We'll need to shut down V12 completely and pull the filter core, Iris said. That will make people nervous, Talon replied. They should be nervous, she said flatly. This wasn't an accident. Outside, the dome's glass. A storm line of glowing ash rolled across the horizon, each wave backlit by the planet's molten rivers. Inside, the tension was heavier than the air, and somewhere in the warren of conduits above their heads, someone was still moving. The hum of the filtration towers shifted, deeper, uneven, like a throat struggling for breath. Iris felt the vibration through the deck plates before she heard the first sharp crack. not metal fatigue. An impact. Ori, status on V12, Iris called, already moving toward the control console. Warning, core pressure in V12 rising beyond safe parameters. Detonation risk in 32 seconds. Talon didn't wait. He sprinted to the manual override panel, boots pounding on the grating. Shut down the feed line, he shouted. Now! The two TRC techs scrambled to the valve controls. One twisted the main lock, nothing. The wheel refused to budge. It's jammed, the tech said, panic edging his voice. Iris's fingers danced over the console, rerouting flow to auxiliary stacks. The holo readout pulsed red. 20 seconds. She looked up. Talon was already halfway up the maintenance ladder, climbing, toward the filter chamber. His tall frame moved with mechanical precision, but his voice came quick, urgent. They've locked the dampers open. No time for a clean shutdown. A sudden bang. Not the detonation yet, but a pressure vent somewhere in the stack. Reverberated. Through the chamber, ash-laden air burst from a seam, swirling in silver-gray spirals under the work lights. The countdown hit 10 seconds. Talon, get down! Iris yelled. He ignored her, reaching the chamber's access hatch. With one last twist of the manual release, he tore the panel free, and then... The detonation... A muffled whump rolled through the dome, followed by a burst of heat and a shockwave that rattled every rib of the structure. The blast doors slammed down automatically, sealing off the bay. Holographic displays flared white before recovering into a storm of error codes. Iris stumbled against the railing, the air full of the bitter tang of scorched ceramic. Ori, containment status. Primary containment intact. Secondary breach in V12 upper conduit. Visual feed available. The main display lit up. Grainy, dust-specked footage from an overhead maintenance cam. Through the haze, the warped remains of the filter housing glowed faintly, coolant vapor pouring out in ghostly ribbons. And then, in the upper right corner, of the feed movement. A figure stepped through the drifting ash, head to toe in a matte black enviro suit. No insignia, no identifying marks. But the helmet shape was unmistakable. Elongated crown, dual side vents, standard Serathi filtration, gear. The figure paused, glancing toward the camera. Even through the static, Iris swore they knew they were being watched. One gloved hand lifted briefly, almost a wave, almost a warning, before the figure stepped out of frame and vanished into the conduit shadows. "Run that again," Talon said, his voice flat. The loop replayed, the same steps, the same pause, the same ghostly exit. One of the TRC techs cursed under his breath. "That's it. The Serathi delegation's been—" "Don't finish that sentence," Iris cut in sharply. "We don't know who's in that suit." Talon's eyes were locked, on the feed unblinking. "And whoever it is, they wanted us to see them." Ori's voice came back, colder now. Sector 6 lockdown initiated. Both delegations alerted. Environmental stability compromised. Recommend suspension of treaty proceedings. The words hung in the air heavier than the ash. Iris exhaled, tasting metal in the recycled air. She knew exactly what this looked like to the TRC brass, and to the Serathi Concord. One spark, real or staged, could burn years of fragile diplomacy to the ground. "We find them," she said quietly, "before the wrong people find their own conclusion." Talon nodded once. "Agreed, but you should know." "What?" "If that really was a Serathi suit, no one on my side admits to having one on this station." They stared at each other for a beat, the red warning lights still pulsing against the curved walls. Somewhere beyond the sealed blast doors, the ash was still moving. The conference chamber above Sector 6 was already packed when Iris and Talon arrived. The air smelled of recycled coolant and rising tempers. At the far end of the oval table, Director Halvern of the TRC slammed a datapad down so hard the holo display flickered. "You expect me to ignore a Serathi signature at the scene of a detonation during Treaty Week?" Across from him, Envoy Kales Virel of the Serathi Concord sat rigid, translucent skin pulsing faintly with blue light, a sign of contained anger in her species. "You expect me," she shot back, "to accept human evidence, filtered through your AI without independent verification?" Murmurs rippled through the aides and security officers lining the walls. The word sabotage hung unsaid, but everyone could hear it. Talon stepped forward, placing both hands flat on the table. "We don't know who was in that suit, and whoever it was, they wanted the cameras to see them." Director Halvern's glare shifted to Iris. "And your assessment?" Iris met his eyes without flinching. "My assessment is that you have no proof. Yet. But if either of you turns this into a public accusation before we know the truth, the treaty dies on the floor of this dome." She let the silence stretch for a beat. "Give me 24 hours. I'll find the breach point, track the suit, and put a name to the saboteur." Kalis folded her long fingers together. "And if it is one of ours? Then you'll have proof strong enough to stand on. And if it's not?" Iris looked around the table. "You won't be starting a war on a lie." The chamber's hum deepened as the dome's environmental system cycled to compensate for the earlier blast. Somewhere overhead, a faint shiver of ash brushed the outer shell. Finally, Halvern exhaled, slow and begrudging. 24 hours, that's all." Kalis gave a curt nod. "Agreed. But know this. My patience will not stretch beyond that." Iris glanced at Talon. Neither of them said it out loud, but they both understood. 24 hours wasn't time to solve this. It was time to keep the planet from tearing itself apart. The lab in Ashridge Hub's lower decks was quiet, except for the soft hiss of the air seals. Banks of analysis pods glowed in dim blue, each cycling through environmental samples pulled from the V12 blast site. Iris stood over one of them, arms folded, watching the hollow projection of a single ash particle, magnified 1,000 times. Its lattice shimmered with microfractures, each glint tagged with data. Serathi alloy residue, Terran ceramic binder. Talon leaned over her shoulder. "That's impossible. Those materials aren't even processed in the same atmosphere." "Not. Unless someone built it that way on purpose," Iris replied. Ori's voice filled the room. "Composite ash print identified. Probability of hybrid manufacturing, 94.6%. Origin trace indicates shared tooling signatures, Terran Resource Compact and Serathi Concord facilities." The words hit like a cold draft. Talon straightened slowly, his eyes narrowing. "You're saying both sides' tech is in that breach?" "I'm saying," Iris said, "someone wanted this to point in two directions at once." She turned to the data board. The hybrid trace wasn't sloppy. It was surgical, engineered to survive the blast and be found. A perfect seed for suspicion. "Recommend notifying both delegations," Ori suggested. "No," Iris said quickly. "Not yet. We tell them now, they'll each believe the other planted it. We lose our 24 hours. Talon's gaze stayed on the shimmering ash print. "Who benefits from both sides tearing at each other?" Iris didn't answer. Not yet. She was already thinking of the conduits, of the locked dampers, of the figure in the black suit who'd looked straight into the camera. Somewhere in this dome, the saboteur was still breathing the same filtered air. 13, Terminus Scar, 55 Cancri A, 41 light-years from Earth. The horizon here was a knife. To the west, permanent night, frozen basalt under a starless void. To the east, molten rivers glowing like veins of fire beneath an eternal day. And in between, the terminus. Scar, a churning wall of silica ash storms, where the planet's two halves tore at each other in endless wind. Iris Calder's exosuit HUD was a haze of warnings. Ash density, critical. Visibility, less than 12 meters. Ashnet signal, fragmented. Somewhere in this chaos, the saboteur's signal was bouncing from conduit to conduit, hopping across the maintenance network like a ghost. Ori's voice crackled through static. Target ping detected, bearing 073. Distance, 70 meters, signal unstable. Talon Varys surged ahead, his taller Serathi frame cutting through the storm with long, deliberate strides. His breathing mask's dual vents pulsed faint blue, filtering silica shards before they could score his lungs. Stay on me, Calder. We lose line of sight, we lose them. Iris kept pace, boots crunching in ash drift that shifted like powdered, glass under each step. Her visor pinged. Another ash net hop, this time doubling back toward the scar's outer ring. They're zigzagging, she said. Trying to burn our trail, Talon replied. A shadow flickered through the haze ahead. Just a silhouette against the glow of the molten dayside. Then it was gone, swallowed by the storm. Iris dropped to one knee, yanking a compact scanner from her thigh rig. She set it to wideband pulse. The device chirped, projecting faint blue lines through the particulate. There, thin ripples in the ash, spaced like footprints but lighter, almost gliding. We've got a track, she said, standing. And they're moving fast. The two pushed forward, weaving between skeletal maintenance spires that jutted from the ash like ribs. The wind screamed through their latticework, a constant howl that made every comm transmission feel like a whisper against a hurricane. Another ping from Ori, closer now. Signal entering conduit array Delta 7. That path leads toward Vault 3. Iris's pulse kicked. Vault 3 wasn't just a storage bay. It was one of 3 secure caches for Q-cells refined from the planet's rare mineral ash. A target that could cripple both TRC and Serathi operations if compromised. We cut them off before they reached the outer hatch, Iris said. Talon glanced back, eyes narrowed behind his visor. Then we move now. They broke into a run, boots hammering the metal causeway that bridged 2 yawning chasms. Below, ash storms churned like boiling clouds, lit from beneath by molten rock. Each gust slammed into them with enough force to stagger. Halfway across, Iris caught movement to her left, another shadow darting between spire supports. Visual left side, she called. Talon pivoted, scanning, but the shape vanished again, into the storm's glare. Her HUD flared red, ash net link severed. The target had gone dark. Ori, reacquire. Attempting triangulation. Stand by. Seconds ticked in the storm's roar. Then Ori's voice returned, urgent. Signal, reacquired. Vault 3 entry in 90 seconds at current speed. Talon's voice sharpened. They're making a straight push. We'll have one chance at interception. Iris adjusted her rifle's ash-filtering optics and pushed forward. Every breath in her suit tasted faintly metallic now, the particulate. Load spiking higher the deeper they went into the scar. Lightning, thin and violet, flashed in the storm's wall, illuminating the path ahead. For a heartbeat, Iris saw the saboteur clearly. The same matte black enviro suit, the same elongated Serathi-style helmet. And in one hand, a compact transmitter pulsing in sync with the ash net nodes. Then the storm swallowed them again. I've got eyes, Iris said. They're less than 100 out. We close that gap now, Talon replied. They sprinted the final stretch toward the conduit hub, a tangle of metal corridors jutting into the storm like an exposed nerve. The hatch to Vault 3 loomed ahead, its warning lights blinking amber through the haze. The saboteur reached it first, slapping something against the access panel before slipping inside. The hatch sealed just as Iris and Talon skidded to a stop. Iris pressed a gloved hand to the metal, still vibrating faintly from the closing mechanism. They're in, she said. Talon's voice was low, steady. Then we're going in after them. The outer hatch to Vault 3 groaned as it cycled open under Ari's override. A rush of warmer, heavier air spilled out, laden with the dry tang of processed ash and lubricants. Iris stepped inside first, her visor adjusting to the dim light. The chamber beyond was a cathedral of metal, tiered racks of Q cells stretching into the shadows. Each cell was sealed in alloy casing, tagged and indexed in the hub's central inventory. Talon entered behind her, the door sealing with a hiss. That muted the storm outside. "If they came in here," he said, scanning the upper catwalks, "they had a reason." Ari's voice followed them in. "Access logs indicate manual entry override. 1 minute, 40 seconds ago. No biometrics recorded." Iris frowned. "No biometrics?" "Correct. Primary scan bypassed. Secondary, not engaged." They moved toward the central console. A faint trail of micro-ash dusted the floor. Odd, in a vault kept under positive pressure to keep contaminants out. Iris knelt, running a glove through the fine layer. The ash shimmered faintly under her lights, laced with telltale specks of conductive mineral. "They brought this in with them," she said. Talon examined the main access panel. The security holo was still active, displaying a split-screen authentication prompt. On the left, a Terran retinal scan interface. On the right, a Serathi biosignature glyph. "Dual authorization," he murmured. "One human, one Serathi." Iris looked up sharply. This vault was supposed to stay sealed unless both sides were present. Which means either they had two people, or one person with both signatures, Talon said. She stared at the paired prompts, each frozen mid-process. Whoever had triggered them hadn't finished the sequence, or had been interrupted. Ari spoke again, tone neutral. "Residual charge detected on panel surface. Pattern consistent with portable code splicer." Iris exhaled slowly. "They're bridging the species gap with stolen biometrics." Talon's gaze hardened. "And if they have that tech, this vault isn't their only target." They shared a look, silent agreement. They needed to find the saboteur before the code sequence could be completed. The warning came too late. A faint hum rippled through the vault, too high-pitched to be the usual cooling systems. Iris froze, the hairs at the back of her neck prickling. "Talon, do you hear that?" He had already turned toward the far wall, eyes narrowing. "That's not a system hum." Ari's voice cut in, sharp, almost clipped. "Unidentified electromagnetic buildup detected. Source proximity. Within Vault 3. Recommend immediate evac." The lights died. For a heartbeat there was only darkness, and the slow echo of cooling metal. Then the world exploded in a burst of static. The EMP wave tore through the chamber like a silent shock, snapping every holo display into black. Iris's suit HUD blinked once, twice, then flatlined. "Systems. Down!" she called, already tapping her controls. No response. Talon's own equipment went dead, only his mask vents still pulsing faint blue. "EMP, but there's particulate in the air. They packed it in ash." The air felt heavier now. Without the filtration fans, heat began to build, and the fine silica dust started to hang in thicker, glittering curtains. Ori's voice returned in ragged fragments, barely audible through residual backup lines. "Power failure, life support offline, oxygen, dropping." Then silence again. Iris's breathing quickened. Her suit's internal scrubbers had gone dead with the EMP. Without them, she was pulling unfiltered vault air through a seal not meant for prolonged exposure. She could already taste the metallic grit at the back of her throat. Talon moved fast, crossing the dim vault with long strides, his silhouette cutting through the drifting ash. He unclipped a compact cylinder from his belt, a biosync filter, and held it up. "Only one active. We share." Iris hesitated. "It's tuned for Serathi biosigns. Biosync adjusts in under 10 seconds, or we both pass out in under 2 minutes. Choose." She didn't argue again. He snapped open the mask's dual-port harness, slotted it over his vents, and passed the other mouthpiece to her. She bit down on it, the cool rush of filtered air hitting her lungs like a lifeline. The first few breaths were awkward, her inhale cutting into his exhale syncing with hers. The filter's core pulsed faintly between them, its microreactor working overtime to keep two organisms alive in an oxygen-starved room. "Feels like breathing with a metronome," she muttered between pulls. Talon's voice was calm, but close now, resonating through the shared line. "Stay steady, deep, slow breaths. We buy time. We find power." They moved together, tethered by the filter's short air line, scanning the shadowed racks for any sign of the saboteur's device. The ash in the air wasn't just residue. It was seeded with fine conductive threads, a perfect delivery medium for the EMP pulse. Iris's eyes caught a faint glint low to the floor, near the base of Rack 12. She crouched, pulling Talon down with her. There, nestled between two Q-cell cases, was a palm-sized emitter wrapped in a mesh of silica and copper strands. "That's our source," she said. Talon reached for it carefully, avoiding direct contact. "EMP's spent, but the ash carrier will keep shorting systems until it's cleaned out." He pulled a small containment capsule from his pack, dropped the emitter inside, and sealed it with a hiss. The filter between them clicked. Low battery warning. They were running out of breathable minutes. "We need backup power now," Iris said, scanning the walls. Talon pointed toward the maintenance alcove in the corner. "Auxiliary generator, manual crank." They half ran, half stumbled to the alcove, every movement jerking them against the tether. Talon took the crank first, his long arms working the stiff mechanism until a faint hum returned to the vault. Dim emergency strips along the floor flickered to life. Ari's voice came back in a rush. "Restoring life support. Oxygen levels stabilizing. EMP source contained?" "Contained," Iris said, pulling the filter away as clean air rushed back into her lungs. For a moment they just stood there, breathing separately again, the heat beginning to bleed away as the fans spun up. Talon sealed the containment capsule and locked it to his belt. "Whoever set that knew exactly how to buy themselves time to get out." Iris nodded grimly. "And they didn't care if it killed us in the process." Somewhere deeper in the vault, a faint metallic clang echoed, like a hatch closing. They weren't alone. The clang echoed again, closer this time. Iris pivoted toward the sound, rifle raised, but the vault was already empty except for the drifting haze of disturbed ash. Whoever it was had slipped deeper into the maintenance warren. Talon moved to a side console, the emergency strips casting sharp lines across his features. His scanner chirped faintly, residual heat signature. It led to a recessed service hatch, near the vault's secondary filtration unit. The hatch was unlocked. Inside, the narrow corridor reeked of chemical solvents. Stacks of polymer tubs lined the walls, each one caked with a grayish residue. Iris ran a gloved finger through it, came up with a gritty smear that glittered faintly under her suit light. "Processed ash," she said. "They've been running it through a wash cycle." Talon crouched beside a jury-rigged machine bolted to the floor. It was compact, rough-welded, and humming faintly from residual heat. A slurry of dark liquid sloshed in its basin. "Illegal." "Tro wash," he confirmed. "Separates the high-conductive minerals for refining into Q-cell cores. Crude, but effective." Iris glanced around the cramped space, noting the patched piping and spliced power lines feeding the unit. "And none of this is on any TRC or Concord registry." Ari's voice filtered through, now back at full clarity. "Unit matches designs confiscated during anti-smuggling raids in the Vega corridor. Estimated yield per batch, 2 Q-cells." Talon straightened. "This isn't just sabotage. This is supply theft, feeding the black market." He pointed to a data slate wired into the machine. Iris pulled it free, thumbing through the logs. Shipment IDs scrolled past, coded but with enough metadata to show drop-off points. She froze. On one entry, Basalt City, Section K-12. Talon's eyes narrowed. That's outer maintenance, minimal security, and perfect for smuggling refined cores without customs scans, Iris added. She slipped the slate into her belt. If we track these drop points, we can map the entire network. Talon gave the machine one last look before sealing the hatch. Then Basalt City's where we go next. As they stepped back into the vault's main chamber, the last of the storm's light from Terminus Scar faded against the dome's reinforced glass. But the ash drifting inside told Iris one thing. The saboteur's trail was still fresh. Back in the hub's forensic lab, the air was cool and still, a stark contrast to the vault's heat and grit. Iris stood beside the analysis console as the machine processed a fresh ash sample scraped from the illegal wash module. The hollow projection formed slowly, rotating magnified structures of mineral lattice overlaid with biotrace markers. Ari's voice was calm, but edged with something that almost sounded like surprise. Ash print sequence complete. 98.9% match to conquered military record. Talon stepped closer. Whose record? The hollow shifted, resolving into a Serathi military profile. Name, rank, service number. Commander Relus Ven Iris glanced at Talon. You know them? His jaw tightened, the pale lines on his skin pulsing faintly. I served under Ven. He died 3 years ago, Terminus skirmish, body unrecovered. The lab's ambient hum suddenly felt louder. If he's dead, Iris said slowly, someone is using his gear, or his identity, Ari added. Note, match includes organic residue, suggesting the ash print was left in present time, not archival contamination. Talon's voice was low now. Then either Relus Ven never died, or someone has a perfect clone of his signature. Iris looked back at the spinning ash print, the glittering lattice like a ghost caught in light. Dead or alive, Ven was part of this, and somewhere in the storm-lashed streets of Basalt City, he might be waiting for them. 6:48. Ashridge Hub, Central Dock Registry, 55, Cancri E, 11.9 light-years from Earth. The shift change hum filled the registry hall, boots on alloy grates, data slates chirping, cargo seals clicking. Shut. From the observation deck, Iris Calder had a full view of the docking lanes, each one framed by the towering curvature of the hub's dome. She wasn't here for the traffic. She was here for one ship. Cinderline 7. A bulk freighter that, on paper, had made a routine run from the Terminus Scar mines back to Ashridge. Its logs were already queued in the system for inspection, but something in the manifest caught her. The passenger count, 41, Iris murmured, scrolling. Her brow furrowed. 41, including cabin 42? Beside her, Commander Talon Varus leaned in, his Serathi eyes, narrow and reflective in the registry's low light, locked on the same line. 42 doesn't exist. That freighter's only built for 40 berths. Her fingers danced over the console, pulling the cabin's data. The name blinked up on the display. Lieutenant Arvin Dross, human, deceased, killed in an Ashwing attack 6 months ago. The hub's network didn't make mistakes that big, unless someone wanted it to. Talon's voice was low, edged. You're saying a dead man just checked in on Cinderline 7? That's exactly what I'm saying. She requested the security cam feed from Dock Bay 6, where Cinderline 7 was still venting cooling steam from its descent. Workers in dust-rated suits unloaded containers of Q cells, but cabin 42's hatch stayed sealed. Ari, the hub's environmental AI, pinged Iris's earpiece. Investigator Calder, access request denied. That cabin is under customs hold. Authority level. Executive override. Executive override? Iris muttered. From who? Talon's jaw tightened. Not from anyone you or I answer to. She didn't like the feeling curling in her gut. This wasn't a data glitch. It was a ghost, a deliberate fabrication buried in the hub's own records. And on 55 Cancri A, ghosts meant smuggling, espionage, or worse. The dock alarms suddenly whooped twice, amber alert. Cargo Bay 3 of the Cinderline 7 had been sealed from the inside. No one was responding to crew hails. Talon was already moving. If there's a dead man walking, Calder, we're about to find out who or what he is. They strode through the airlock, the smell of metallic dust thick even through their masks. The cargo bay was dim, only the soft green glow of the Ashnet nodes casting light over stacked containers. Iris approached cabin 42's hatch, her biosync scanner ready. It pulsed once, twice, then froze. Ashprint confirmed. It read, Lieutenant Arvin Dross. Iris swallowed. The scanner wasn't wrong. Either someone had harvested Dross's biological trace, or the man himself had somehow walked out of his grave. Talon checked his sidearm, voice tight. Either way, Calder. Someone went to a lot of trouble to make this ghost real, and in the cold, recycled air of the freighter's bay, she felt the first ripple of what was coming. Threads of a conspiracy twisting together, pulling them toward something far bigger than a falsified log, the kind of thing that could shatter the hub's fragile balance, and maybe the treaty itself. 9. 12. Ashridge Hub, Sublevel 4. Freight corridors, 55 Cancri E, 11.9 light-years from Earth. The freight corridors under the hub were never meant for public eyes. Narrow, dim-lit, and vibrating with the constant hum of conveyors, they smelled faintly of scorched ceramite and mineral dust. Here, commerce wasn't conducted in contracts. It was whispered between pallet stacks and handshakes in shadow. Iris kept her pace tight with Talon as they slipped past a series of sealed cargo doors. The amber alert from Cinderline 7 had been hushed almost instantly, pulled from the public log before most dockhands even noticed. That kind of erasure meant someone had power here, and that someone wanted their ghost passenger invisible. We're not chasing just one body, Talon muttered, scanning the Ashnet relay points overhead. This is a vein. We cut it open. We'll find the whole system pumping. Iris keyed into a maintenance access that Ari had accidentally left unsecured. Inside was a micro-dispatch terminal, lines of Ashnet packets streaming past. She began filtering for anomalies, unregistered Q-cell transfers, irregular oxygen canisters, freight weight mismatches. The data hit her like a cold rush. Multiple shipments from Terminus Scar flagged as slag waste were being routed here, then sent back out under false IDs. Inside those shipments, the Q-cells that could power a storm agitator, or worse, entire off-grid borer fleets. She pulled one more layer off the routing tree, and the Ashwing name emerged like a rot beneath the surface. Not whispered graffiti this time. This was a network. False manifests signed by mid-tier freight chiefs, smuggling schedules synced to dust storms, payments funneled through ghost accounts on distant outposts, and the motive was as clear as the dust storms beyond the dome. Monopoly. If Ashwing broke the treaty, seized the Scar's mole shafts, and shut the Serathi out, they'd own the entire supply of high-density tro mineral. Every vault, every Q-cell, every dependent colony would bend to their pricing or choke in the dark. Talon glanced at her console feed, his voice low but sharp. This isn't just a smuggling ring, it's a siege in slow motion. Iris exhaled, the weight of it pressing in. Ari's voice cut through their link, filtered, hesitant. Investigator, I've traced an override signature in the customs system, the same that locked cabin 42. It belongs to someone sitting in the hub's administration wing. The walls suddenly felt closer. Smuggling they could handle, but an inside man, that meant this wasn't an infection from outside. The hub. It was in the bloodstream, and that changed everything. 46. Basalt City Subterranean Markets, 55 Cancri E, 11.9 light-years from Earth. The market wasn't on any sanctioned map. It existed in the cooled veins of ancient lava flows, a maze of tunnels where the walls still glimmered with trapped heat and mineral shimmer. Down here, sound was swallowed by the rock. Only the low murmur of barter and the soft hiss of air. Recyclers hinted at life. Iris and Talon moved with purpose, their disguises tailored for the chaos, dust-caked enviro cloaks, faceplates stained with fake corrosion. The locals barely looked twice. Anonymity was currency here. Above them, hidden vents exhaled the faint, acrid scent of tro dust. Their target was a cluster of stalls at the far end, where Q cells were being exchanged for unregistered tech, borer drills, weapon cores, atmospheric disruptors. All of it pointed to Ashwing stockpiling for something massive. Iris scanned the crowd, her visor overlaid tracking heat signatures. There. Talon's subvocal tone was tight. A shipment crate with the same serial mask they'd traced from Ashridge. Hub. 2 handlers, both human, moving it toward a freight alcove. Iris signaled for a pincer intercept. They slipped through the crowd, avoiding eye contact, every step timed with the noise of nearby haggling. Then, movement. One of the handlers glanced up, pupils dilated with recognition. He dropped the crate, hit a wrist switch. The world flashed. White. A muffled crack, an alarm tone, sharp, cutting, ripped through the market. The air recyclers stuttered, then died. In seconds, the tunnel filled with a shimmering haze. Tro dust, unfiltered, weaponized, drifted like a living thing, clawing into every gap in their seals. Seal failure, upper latch. Iris coughed, slamming a hand against her helmet's breach indicator. Her oxygen dropped fast. Talon was already moving. He unclipped his auxiliary biosync filter, snapped it onto her intake port, and switched their systems to shared circulation. Their breathing fell into a single rhythm. Tight, shallow, in sync. One life support loop between them. Through the haze, shadows ran, handlers disappearing into side passages. The crate was gone. Iris tried to move, but Talon gripped her arm. We live first, then we hunt. They stumbled toward an emergency shaft, the shared oxygen line tugging between them like a lifeline. Behind them, the market dissolved into chaos, voices shouting, boots pounding, dust swirling so thick it swallowed light. As the shaft doors sealed, Iris glanced back one last time. Through the haze, she saw a symbol daubed on the wall in fresh. Tro paste, an ashwing spread wide, and beneath it, a single phrase in block Serathi script. The scar will burn. 12. Ashridge Hub. Upper Maintenance Ring. 55 Cancri E. 11.9 light-years from Earth. The hub's upper ring was never meant for visitors. Narrow service corridors, half-lit by emergency strips, rattled with the pulse of coolant lines. Somewhere beyond, the hum of Ashridge's massive storm filters vibrated through the walls, a constant reminder that here, survival depended on machinery older than some nations. Iris moved ahead, her boots muffled on the grated floor, Talon close behind. Their breath still carried the faint rhythm from the shared circulation in the market, an unspoken tether between them. The intel from Basalt City had led them straight to this sector. Ari, the station's AI, had confirmed it quietly. The maintenance logs had been altered by someone with executive override codes, and those codes traced back to one man. They found him in a control booth overlooking the slag lift, where molten platinum and slag poured down in glittering streams to be cooled and processed. Ravel Keene looked like a man who had spent his life avoiding hard labor. Clean boots, pressed jacket, the posture of someone who believed walls and deals would keep him safe, Keene. Iris's voice cut through the roar of the lift machinery. He turned, slow, calculating. His eyes flicked between her and Talon, lingering on the Serathi officer. You don't have clearance to be here. Neither do you. Talon replied, stepping forward. His height forced Keen back against the console. Iris slid a data wafer across the panel. On it, maintenance schematics, black market inventory manifests, and the altered crew rosters from Cinderline 7, all with his security stamp. "You're moving unregistered Q cells," she said, her tone sharp. "Through vaults you shouldn't even know exist, and now there's a dead Serathi officer's ash print on your supply chain." Keen's jaw twitched. "You think I run this? I'm not that stupid." Talon's voice dropped to a growl. "Then give us the name of who does." Pause. Keen's gaze darted to the slag pouring below, as if weighing the value of silence against the heat beneath his feet. "You're chasing the wrong predator," he said finally. "I'm a facilitator. I get things moved. Someone else decides what's worth moving." "Name?" Iris pressed. Keen hesitated, then leaned just close enough for the storm filter hum to mask his words. "Crixion Dynamics. You didn't hear it from me." Ori's voice crackled suddenly over the booth's intercom. "Unscheduled. Lockdown initiated. All exits from upper maintenance ring will seal in 30 seconds. Keen paled. Iris and Talon exchanged a look. They weren't the only ones tracking him. "Move," Talon said. And for the first time, Ravel Keen obeyed without argument. 4. Ashridge Hub, Sector 7 Transit Lift, 55 Cancri E, 11.9 light-years from Earth. The transit lift shuddered as it descended, its old mag rails squealing in protest. Outside the mesh walls, a hollow shaft dropped into darkness, lined with service conduits and rusted support beams. The scent of ozone mixed with faint traces of scorched minerals, a smell Iris now associated with trouble. Keen sat on the bench opposite her, flanked by 2 security drones. His earlier arrogance had bled away, leaving a sheen of sweat on his brow. Talon stood at the lift's control panel, scanning the readout streaming from Ari's direct uplink. "I told you everything I know," Keen muttered, breaking the silence. "You keep me alive, maybe I get you into the tunnels. That's the deal." "No," Iris corrected, her gaze locked on him. "The deal is, you get us where we need to go, and then you disappear." The lift slowed, the grinding sound replaced by a deep, resonant hum. The doors slid open to reveal a maintenance bay carved into the planet's basalt crust. Overhead, heavy coolant pipes ran along the ceiling. Beyond them, the floor gave way to a grated catwalk that hung over a yawning fissure glowing with the red-orange pulse of slow-moving lava. Talon stepped forward first, his eyes narrowing at the sight of a heavily locked access terminal. Its screen flickered faintly, still drawing power from an independent source. "This is it," he said. "Ashwing used this terminal to store navigational overlays." Keen shifted uncomfortably. "You have no idea how dangerous this is. Those tunnels are unstable. Half of them were dug during the first mining rush. The rest—" He stopped short. "The rest leads straight under the annex hall," Iris finished, her voice low. Talon accessed the terminal. Layers of holographic schematics unfolded in the air, twisting paths of old lava tubes, some marked with hazard symbols, others annotated in Serathi script. At the center, a thick red line traced a direct route from this bay to a massive chamber, labeled in Terran and Serathi alike, Treaty Annex Hall. "This is how they plan to hit it," Iris said, her chest tightening. "They can bypass every checkpoint above ground." Before Talon could respond, the hologram glitched, sections of the map rewriting themselves in real time. Ori's voice came through, tense. "Iris, Talon, someone else is accessing this. Map from another node. They're copying it." "From where?" Talon asked sharply. "Inside the annex hall," Ori replied. "You have minutes before they move." Iris shut down the terminal, sealing the data to her wrist pad. "Then we don't waste a second." The 3 of them turned toward the exit and froze. The bay doors had begun to seal, massive hydraulics, locking into place. Keen swore under his breath. "They already know we're coming." 8:42. Ashridge Dome, 55 Cancri E, 41.2. Light years from Earth. The plaza beneath Ashridge Dome was a mosaic of polished basalt, banners of the Terran, Resource Compact and the Serathi Concord rippling in the filtered daylight. Hundreds had gathered for the signing of the Annex Protocol, a final seal to decades of negotiations. Cameras floated like patient insects. The air, purified through the dome's layered membranes, carried the faint scent of mineral-rich steam. Iris. Calder stood at the edge of the stage, scanning the crowd with her visor's thermal overlay. Commander Talon Varys stood opposite her, posture rigid, his amber eyes tracking every shift in the security perimeter. "Nothing unusual," Iris murmured into the link. Talon's voice came back with a low vibration. "That's the problem. Ashwing likes perfect days." Then, Ori's voice cut through the network, tight and clipped. "Unscheduled vibration detected at V12 stack. Multiple storm agitators. Activating." Iris's HUD flared with red markers across the outer stacks. The agitators, massive turbines meant to redistribute micro-ash for filtration, were spinning up in sequence. But this was no routine maintenance pattern. This was a chain reaction. "Kill the feeds!" Iris snapped. Ori's tone wavered. "Override denied. Physical access required." The ground trembled underfoot. A ripple ran through the dome's crowd. Gasps, confused murmurs. Above them, the dome's transparent panels shimmered as ash density outside surged. It looked like a shadow falling from the sky, except the shadow churned. Talon's hand went to his comm bracelet. Ashwing just armed a storm. His crest flared, a Serathi instinct before combat. If they reach critical sync, the ash load will collapse the dome. From the northern sector, a deep, rolling boom thundered. One agitator had already gone critical, throwing a plume of ultra-fine ash into the upper currents. Iris could see it, a twisting column of gray climbing into the artificial daylight, each particle charged with static. Security drones lifted from their pads, spreading in a defensive lattice. A volley of aeroserum EMP rounds detonated in the distance, trying to disable the agitator control nodes, but the chain kept rolling. Talon, sector path? Through slag lift corridor, fastest shot to V12, they broke into a sprint. Boots striking basalt with a hollow rhythm. Around them, the crowd surged toward emergency exits, ushered by TRC and Concord officers. The banners above snapped and twisted under the shifting air pressure. Another tremor, sharper, metallic. The dome's internal alarms howled in a cascading pattern. Structural stress warning. Halfway to the corridor, Iris's visor picked up an ash print, fresh, on a maintenance hatch. She skidded to a stop. "They were here less than a minute, Ego." Talon keyed a short-burst message to the nearest unit. "Seal Gate 3. Push them inward." Through the hatch's viewport, they saw the thin glow of agitator control lines running like veins into the distance. A human silhouette darted past, dark ash hood, goggles, the Ashwing sigil flaring on the arm. Then the feed fuzzed into static. As fine ash invaded the hatch's seals, Iris yanked the manual release. "We've got one shot before they sink the last 3 units." As the hatch groaned open, the sound hit them, a low, throbbing hum that built in waves. Storm agitators in resonance, the kind of vibration you felt in your bones before your ears registered it. Ash began to slip through the corridor like underwater. Smoke. It caught the light in silver-gray ribbons. With every step forward, their suit filters hissed harder. "Varys," Iris's voice caught in her throat. "I know. Once this starts, we can't turn it off from here." They pushed into the dim, ash-choked corridor, every instinct screaming that the clock had already started. The signing ceremony, the months of negotiation. It was all unraveling in minutes. And somewhere ahead, Ashwing's operatives were watching, the storm they'd summoned. 8:49. Outer perimeter, Ashridge Dome, 55 Cancri. The first impact wasn't from a weapon. It was the ash. Microscopic particles, hypercharged from the agitators, struck the outer dome membrane with the fury of a sandstorm and the persistence of acid rain. The outer plating began to ripple with static halos. Iris and Talon had barely cleared the maintenance corridor when the world outside exploded into motion. Security units of the Terran Resource Compact and the Serathi Concord were already in overlapping formations, drone swarms rising in tight spirals. Ori's voice cracked across every comm. Thermal signatures inbound, dozens. Ashwing assault teams, south and east sectors. The feed in Iris's visor split into quadrants, each showing chaos. Ashwing fighters in blackened exo-armor darted between cover points, rifles braced against their shoulders. The moment they fired, the rounds fragmented into clouds of metallic dust. Perfect camouflage in the storm. EMP ready, a TRC officer barked. A volley of aeroserum EMP rounds detonated mid-air, sending shockwaves through the ash. Several Ashwing drones spiraled out of control, crashing into the basalt walkways. But the enemy wasn't just outside. The ash itself had become their weapon. From the north edge, Talon spotted movement, low, fast. Tro drones! They were the size of raptors, their ceramic plating etched with microfiltration vents. Each one sniffed for body heat, then launched a burst of fine ash into vents, joints, and optics. TRC soldiers went down coughing as their filters clogged. Hold. "This line!" Talon shouted in Serathi, his voice carrying like a war drum. A dozen Concord troopers formed a staggered wall, shoulder to shoulder, plasma lances flaring against the gray. Iris ducked behind a fractured support strut, thumbing through her loadout. EMPs were working against the drones, but the troopers needed breathing room. She yanked a Q-cell-powered flasher from her belt, primed it, and hurled it into the thickest ash pocket. White light tore through the haze. Silhouettes stumbled, Ashwing foot soldiers momentarily exposed. TRC gunners seized the chance, their ceramic-coated rounds cutting them down before the ash swallowed them again. V-12's over half synced, Ori warned. 2 more agitators online in the next 90 seconds. Ash density climbed. The air inside the dome grew gritty, filters whining under strain. Somewhere above, the support beams groaned. Iris felt the vibration in her teeth. Through the storm, a figure emerged. Ravel Keen, the human overseer turned Ashwing pawn. His hood was down, eyes locked on a wrist console. A flick of his fingers sent the last agitator's status bar surging. "Keen!" Iris's voice sliced through the comm. He didn't even look at her. 2 TRC soldiers broke formation, charging him. But the ash reacted. As if alive, coiling into thick strands around their legs, dragging them to the ground. Tro drones pounced, their ceramic claws sparking against armor. Talon didn't hesitate. He vaulted the barricade, cutting through the drones with a sweep of his plasma lance, closing the gap on Keen. But the overseer tapped his console once more, and the hum from the agitators deepened into a bone-rattling roar. "They'll bring the dome down," Iris breathed. Talon's crest flared. "Not if we end this now." Somewhere deep beneath the chaos, Vault Zero waited, the only place the storm could be stopped. But getting there meant passing through ash so fine it could suffocate a human in under 30 seconds, or overload a Serathi's crystalline lungs. 917, sublevel transit, Ashridge Hub, 55 Cancri. The elevator car shuddered as it dropped into the ash-swept underlevels. Iris could feel each tremor in her bones, like the whole dome was holding its breath before it collapsed. Talon stood beside her, visor darkened to block the glare of warning lights. His plasma lance rested against his shoulder, but the set of his jaw told her he was already calculating the next move. Ori's voice came over the comm, urgent and steady. "Analysis complete. Core storm control is confirmed in Vault Zero. Without shutdown, structural breach in 12 minutes. Vault 0. The mythic chamber every engineer whispered about, but few had ever seen. Built before the treaty, sealed under 3 levels of basalt and security locks. It held the master resonance hub for every storm agitator on 55 Cancri A. "How do we get in?" Iris asked. "Access protocols are split," Ori replied. "Human and Serathi biosignatures, paired, both required, no single entity permitted." Talon's crest angled toward her. Biosync filter. It wasn't a suggestion. Iris exhaled slowly. The biosync filter was more than a mask. It was an intimate splice of biology and tech, mapping 2 breathing patterns into one continuous loop. A bad sync could kill both wearers in under a minute. "We don't have time to calibrate," she warned. "We don't have time not to," Talon countered. The elevator hit bottom with a metallic thud. Doors parted onto a corridor swallowed in haze. The ash here wasn't drifting, it clung to surfaces, writhing in response to their movement. Iris could feel the static skimming over her armor. Talon pulled the biosync harness from his belt. Its flexible tubing gleamed with embedded crystalline nodes. He extended it toward her without hesitation. "On 3, he said. 1. She locked the mouth seal in place. 2. The cold of the nodes pressed into her skin, mapping her breath. 3. The first inhalation was a shock, her lungs pulling in air shaped by Talon's crystalline respiration. It was sharp, metallic, threaded with a faint ozone tang. She saw his eyes tighten behind the visor. He was tasting the carbon warmth of human breath. For a moment, their heartbeats mismatched. Then the filter adjusted. 2 rhythms, 1 circuit. They moved, ash tendrils slithered toward them, drawn by heat and pulse. But the biosync confused their sensors. The storm didn't know what they were. Human, Serathi, or something else entirely. The corridor narrowed, ending in a reinforced hatch etched with concentric Serathi glyphs. Talon pressed his palm to the panel. Iris followed, her own print merging into the bio layer. A hum built underfoot, and the hatch spiraled open. Vault 0 was nothing like she'd imagined. A cathedral of basalt and alloy, its ceiling lost in darkness. In the center, the resonance core spun, a sphere of molten ash glass suspended in magnetic fields, its surface rippling like liquid night. Status streams ghosted across Iris's visor. Each agitator linked, oscillating toward destructive harmony. "This is it," she whispered. Talon was already moving toward the control dais. "Then let's unmake their storm." 9:21, Vault 0, Inner Chamber, Ashridge Hub, 55 Cancri. The moment Iris stepped beyond the hatch, the ash changed. It wasn't drifting anymore. It was alive. Microscopic tendrils swirled in tight spirals, clinging to her visor, testing every seam of her armor. The heads-up display flashed particulate saturation critical, but the biosync filter kept their oxygen feed stable. Talon's voice was calm, deliberate. "Keep moving. The storm knows we're here." They advanced toward the resonance core, each step leaving no footprints. The ash flowed back into place behind them. Iris could feel the hum of the magnetic field through her boots, a deep vibration that resonated with her teeth. At the base of the dais, a crystalline interface rose like a shard of frozen lightning. 2 bioports pulsed faint blue, 1 keyed, for human chemistry, 1 for Serathi. Ori's voice crackled in their comms. "Synchronization window, 90 seconds. Both profiles must align before shutdown sequence can be authorized." They exchanged a glance. No more words. Talon placed his clawed hand on the Serathi port. Iris pressed her palm against the human receptor. The interface came alive, light spilling upward, weaving their neural and metabolic data into a lattice of fire. Iris felt it instantly, his thoughts brushing hers, not in words, just raw impressions. The sharp tang of Serathi battle readiness, the scent memory of volcanic glass, the weight of oaths sworn under alien constellations. She didn't fight it. She let him feel her own. The copper taste of fear, the pull of Earth's gravity in childhood dreams, the quiet rage against corporate lies. The lattice solidified. The core's resonance began to falter, its liquid surface rippling out of phase. Ori counted down. 30 seconds. 20. 15. The ash screamed. It coiled upward in a cyclone, slamming against the magnetic barrier, desperate to hold the frequency together. Iris pushed harder, flooding the lattice with every ounce of focus. Talon mirrored her, his crest flaring under the strain. 5, 4, 3. A shattering crack split the chamber. The core's glow fractured, scattering into 1,000 glittering motes that rained harmlessly to the floor. The storm was gone. They staggered back, the biosync filter releasing its hold on their lungs. For the first time since the alarms began, the air felt still. A2, Ashridge Dome, Command Spire, 55. Cancri. A. The storm outside had broken. What remained was silence, the heavy, brittle kind that follows disaster. From the spire's panoramic viewport, Iris and Talon watched the ash clouds thin over the dome, revealing the fractured glint of sunlight on the glass. Rescue drones swept through the streets below, ferrying civilians toward sealed shelters. Ori's holographic form flickered beside them, her normally steady voice carrying an edge. Interception complete. I've decrypted the final transmission routed through AshNet during the agitator cascade. The display bloomed into a field of data, and there, like a signature etched in fire, was a crest neither of them had expected. Crixion Dynamics. Talon's jaw tightened, crest flattening against his skull. Crixion is a weapons syndicate, multi-system. Why in the void would they fund Ashwing? Iris was already scrolling through the comm logs. Not fund, command. She expanded the metadata. Shipment records, covert payments, encrypted directives. Each order had been ghosted through cutout corporations, but the patterns were unmistakable. The final instruction chilled her. Destabilize Ashridge. Force Serathi withdrawal, anal appendix. Reauthorize military procurement. Talon exhaled sharply. Rearmament! They want the Compact and Concord back in an arms race. Ori's tone sharpened. And they almost succeeded. Had you failed to collapse the resonance, casualty projections exceeded 43% of the dome population. Iris felt the weight of it, how close they'd come to losing not just the treaty, but an entire city. But the feed wasn't over. A new video file auto-played. A boardroom drenched in warm gold light, the Crixion crest etched into the wall. At the head of the table sat Mailer Crix, human. Silver hair, eyes like polished obsidian. He leaned forward, speaking to someone off-frame. War is the forge of progress. Treaties, dull the blade. Ashwing served its purpose. Now the field is open. The file cut out, replaced by Auri's interface. This was recorded 12 hours before the appendix signing. He's on planet. Iris turned to Talon. Then he's still here. The Serathi's mandibles flexed in a slow, deliberate movement, a predatory tell. Then the hunt begins. Outside, the ash began to fall again, soft, thin, harmless. But Iris knew it wasn't the storm they had to fear anymore. It was the man who could summon one whenever he pleased. 11. Slag Lift Conduit, Ashridge. Hub 55 Cancri A, 41 light-years from Earth. The heat shimmered in waves. Beneath Iris Calder's boots, the platinum conduit pulsed with molten metal, red-white rivers rushing toward the towering slag lift. Above, warning klaxons wailed. Auri's voice cut through the comm static. Target confirmed. Ravel Keen, 30 meters ahead. He's moving for the launch gantry. Iris sprinted. The air burned her lungs, tasting of copper and scorched dust. Ahead, Ravel's figure blurred through the haze, a shadow against the glare. Beside her, Commander Talon Varys kept pace, his Serathi exo-frame venting bursts of coolant to survive the corridor's heat. "If he reaches the lift, we lose him," Talon said, voice sharp. "And Mailer Crix gets away clean." Iris's fingers tightened on the Aeroserum EMP slug launcher slung at her side. Every step felt heavier. The conduit's vibration, like running on the back of a living thing, threatened to throw her balance, a flash ahead. Keen turned, firing a shock bolt. It cracked past Iris's shoulder, exploding in a spray of molten sparks. She dove, rolled, came up firing, EMP round hissing through the heat shimmer. It missed. "He's heading for the transfer clamps," Ori called. "If he disengages the lift, it'll launch straight into orbit. No way to intercept." The conduit narrowed, forcing Iris and Talon into single file. Tro pressure vents along the wall hissed like serpents, releasing bursts of scalding gray steam. Talon surged forward, armor catching the blasts. He lunged, grabbing the handrail to swing around a bend, closing the gap. "Iris, cut him off from the side gantry!" She vaulted over a coolant pipe, landing hard on a maintenance ledge. The metal groaned under her weight. Below, molten platinum, churned in an open channel, bright enough to burn the shadows from her face. Keen glanced back, eyes wide. Then he jumped, down onto the lift cradle itself. Talon swore in Serathi. Iris didn't wait. She leapt after him, feeling the heat punch through her boots, landing just as the slag lift's motors roared to life. The platform began to rise, the city's molten heart carrying them toward the black mouth of the launch shaft. And Keen was still running. 6:14. Cinderline 7, Transit Hub, Ashridge Hub, 55. Cancri E, the slag lift, screamed upward, but the chase had shifted. Ori's tactical overlay bloomed across Iris's visor, routes, choke points, enemy positions. Keen is diverting through the Cinderline freight tunnels, the AI reported. He's headed for a loaded quarren transport. If he boards, we lose him in the dust lanes. The Cinderline wasn't just a cargo network, it was a labyrinth of mag rails carrying tons of volatile ore through the hab, and it was crowded. Every minute, trains of sealed ash carriers roared past, each one capable of erasing anything in its path. For the first time since the war began, TRC security and Serathi Concord forces shared the same comm channel. No formality, no suspicion, just the urgent calculus of a cornered predator. Squad Theta, cut power to track 6, now. Conquered snipers on Overpass 2, eyes on the gantry. Iris, Talon, herd him into the customs bay. We close the net there. They moved like they'd trained for this all their lives. Iris sprinted down a side corridor, boots ringing on the steel grating. Talon took the high path, his exo-frame clinging to the curved wall like an insect, weapon braced. Keen burst from the lift platform into the main artery of Cinderline 7, shoving past workers. Steam vented from cooling stacks overhead, swallowing. "Him in gray mist! He's armed! Careful!" Someone barked. A shot cracked. Ceramic shrapnel skittered across the deck near Iris's leg. Then, a coordinated strike. Concord suppressors fired from above, driving Keen toward the waiting TRC blockade. Iris slid across the deck, knocking a crate into his path. He stumbled. Talon dropped in from the gantry, blocking the only open exit. For a heartbeat, Keen froze, boxed in by enemies who, only days ago, would have been trying to kill each other. "End of the line," Iris said. Her voice was calm and deadly certain. 6:27, V12. Stack Control Deck, Ashridge Hub, 55, Cancri E. The captured Keen was hauled away, but Ari's voice cut across all channels before anyone could breathe. "Warning, storm agitator residues detected. Residual vortex forming near dome perimeter. Collapse risk in 8 minutes. They all knew what that meant. The emergency ash dispersal system, V12 stack, had taken damage in the firefight. Its automated controls were offline. To vent the superheated ash safely, someone would have to operate the manual release from inside the upper control deck. Talon's gaze met Iris. No words at first. Just the weight of every choice they'd made to get here. Biocompatibility matters, Ari said, quieter now. The deck's radiation and ash density will breach a human filter in 90 seconds. Serathi physiology can endure 4 minutes. Maybe. She shook her head instantly. No, we do this together. We've beaten everything else side by side. And if we both go in, we both die, Talon replied. His voice was low, but there was steel in it. You've got to see this through, Iris. You carry the proof. You bring it to the Accord vote. She stepped forward, almost angry. I'm not losing. You to some damn lever in a room full of dust. For a moment, the control deck vibrated with the pulse of the ash storm outside. Talon touched the side of her helmet, a Serathi gesture, half blessing, half farewell. You won't lose me. I'll be in every breath you take until the ash settles. He moved past her before she could grab him, sealing the hatch behind. Through the reinforced viewport, Iris saw him fight the roaring wind inside, each step toward the release lever a battle. Her comm crackled. For the Accord, Iris. And for us. The lever dropped. The stack roared to life, spewing a pillar of red-lit ash into the sky, dispersing it harmlessly above the dome. Alarms began to fade, but inside the deck, Talon didn't move. 634. Slag Lift Command Platform, Ashridge Hub, 55, Cancri E. The storm outside was breaking. Ash drifted in slow spirals now, falling like gray snow over the dome. Iris stood in the platform's control ring, every nerve, screaming to go back for Talon. But there was one last move to play. 2 TRC security teams and a Serathi strike squad ringed the slag lift's upper tier. At its center, Mailer Crix was pinned between a wall of rifles and the molten glare of the platinum chute. Even here, the man's suit was immaculate, armored threads woven with corporate arrogance. You've ruined everything, Crix said, lips curling. The Compact and the Concorde will crawl back to us within a cycle. They always do. Iris didn't answer. She just slid the hollow chip from her wrist unit and into the main uplink. Ari's voice rolled through every mining hub, every dome, every barracks speaker from Terminus Scar to Basalt City. Public broadcast initiated. Encrypted files attached. Project Ashwing directives, Crixion Dynamics asset logs, full evidence of deliberate treaty sabotage. On the hollow screens overhead, the truth unfolded. Schematics of storm agitators, memos authorizing controlled collapses, payment trails to mercenaries. The crowd of workers and militia who had gathered below looked up in silence, their faces lit by the cold glow of betrayal. Crix lunged for the uplink. The Serathi sergeant moved faster, slamming him to the deck. Iris stepped forward, her voice steady, carrying across every open channel. This ends today. Not with another dome burned, not with another Accord broken, but with the truth. Cheers erupted, raw and uncoordinated at first, then swelling into something that sounded like hope. The cuffs locked around Crix's wrists with a final click. Iris allowed herself one breath, just one, before her eyes flicked toward the sealed corridor that led back to V12 stack. Talon still hadn't come out. 702. Ashridge Hub Central. Forum, 55 Cancri, A. Distance from Earth, 41 light-years. The dome's inner lights shimmered through the thinning ash, turning the air a soft silver gray. Workers, engineers, and militia from both factions crowded the forum, their boots still dusted with storm grit. At the center dais, a single banner hung, half in the Terran Resource Compact's deep blue, half in the Serathi Concord's sun gold. It was the first time those colors had shared a field since the first ore contract was signed. Talon emerged from the side corridor, limping slightly, but alive. His biosync rig still clung to his chest, vents steaming faintly. Iris exhaled for the first time since the slag lift fight, the knot in her ribs loosening. Around them, hollow projectors beamed the new charter into the air, the Ashfall Accord, a treaty that didn't just divide resources, it bound both sides. To co-own and co-defend every dome, every stack, every gram of platinum pulled from the storms. Crixion Dynamics' influence had been gutted overnight. With the evidence in public hands, even the most hardened loyalists couldn't deny what had been done in their name. "You know this means staying," Talon said quietly. His tone was half question, half certainty. Iris looked past him through the forum's transparent east wall to where Terminus Scar's black winds still twisted on the horizon. She thought about the quiet hum of the V-12 stack at night, the way the ash glittered under the dome lights when the storms broke. Earth feels far away now, she admitted, and maybe that's not a bad thing. They didn't need to say more. The forum's crowd began to chant, not for war, not for vengeance, but for the strange, stubborn hope of two peoples who had fought and bled and chosen to stay. Outside, ash fell soft as memory, and for the first time in months, it didn't feel like a warning. And so, the Ashfall Accord was signed, not on paper, but in the hearts of two worlds. Iris Calder and Commander Talon Varys stood beneath the fading storm, watching the new dawn spread across the blackened horizon of 55 Cancri A. Not as human, not as Serathi, but as the first guardians of a fragile future. The war had ended, for now. The mines still burned with molten platinum. The ash still fell in whispers. But for the first time, there was hope. Forged in fire, sealed in trust. And maybe that's how peace is truly born. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next journey beyond the stars. Leave a comment. Tell me what you felt, what you saw, and share it so more people can step into the storms and the silence with us. Because the universe is vast, and there are always more stories waiting.